The discovery beneath Manhattan. The year was 1904, and New York City was in the throes of a transformation. The streets above were a cacophony of horse-drawn carriages, early automobiles, and the ceaseless chatter of a city that never slept. But beneath the surface, in the dark, damp tunnels of the newly constructed subway system, a different kind of noise was echoing, a noise that would soon be silenced forever. The workers had been digging for months, their progress slow but steady. The subway was a marvel of modern engineering, a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless drive to conquer the urban landscape. But as they dug deeper, something unexpected began to emerge. At first, it was just a few odd stones, seemingly out of place in the otherwise uniform layers of earth. Then, as the workers pressed on, the stones gave way to something far more extraordinary, the remnants of an ancient city. The discovery was met with a mixture of awe and disbelief. The city was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Its architecture was strange, almost alien, with towering spires and intricate carvings that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The walls were made of a material that no one could identify, a smooth, black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. And then there were the symbols, etched into every surface, a language that no one could decipher. The workers reported their findings to their superiors, who in turn alerted the city officials. But before any real investigation could take place, the site was sealed off. The workers were sworn to secrecy, and all records of the discovery were destroyed. The city above continued to grow and thrive, oblivious to the ancient metropolis that lay hidden beneath its streets. Decades passed, and the memory of the underground city faded into obscurity. The subway system expanded, and the tunnels that had once led to the ancient ruins were forgotten. But the city was not gone, it was merely waiting. The urban explorer. It was the summer of 2023, and New York City was hotter than ever, both literally and figuratively. The streets were alive with the usual chaos. Tourists snapping selfies in Times Square, street performers belting out tunes in subway stations, and the ever-present hum of construction as the city continued to reinvent itself. But for 28-year-old urban explorer Mia Torres, the real adventure lay beneath the surface. Mia had always been drawn to the hidden corners of the world. Abandoned hospitals, forgotten catacombs, derelict factories. She had explored them all, documenting her finds on her popular YouTube channel, Below the Surface. Her followers loved her fearless approach and her knack for uncovering the secrets that most people overlooked. But Mia was always searching for something more, something that would truly set her apart from the countless other urban explorers out there. It was during one of her late-night research sessions that she stumbled upon a cryptic reference to an underground city beneath Manhattan. The source was an old, yellowed newspaper clipping from the early 1900s, barely legible and tucked away in the archives of the New York Public Library. The article was vague, mentioning only a remarkable discovery during the construction of the subway system and a subsequent cover-up. But it was enough to pique Mia's interest. Determined to uncover the truth, Mia spent weeks poring over old maps, blueprints, and construction records. Her breakthrough came when she found a set of schematics for the original subway tunnels, marked with a series of annotations that didn't match any known plans. The annotations pointed to a sealed-off section of the tunnels, deep beneath Lower Manhattan. According to the schematics, the section had been closed off in 1904, the same year as the mysterious discovery. Mia knew she had to investigate. Armed with her camera, a backpack full of supplies, and a healthy dose of skepticism, she made her way to the location indicated on the map. It wasn't easy. The entrance was hidden behind a rusted gate in an abandoned maintenance tunnel, and it took her hours to cut through the layers of grime and decay. But finally, she found herself standing in front of a massive, ancient door. The door was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was made of the same black stone described in the old newspaper article, and it was covered in the same strange symbols. Mia ran her fingers over the carvings, feeling a strange tingling sensation as she did so. The door was cold to the touch, almost unnaturally so, and it seemed to hum faintly, as if it were alive. Taking a deep breath, Mia pushed against the door. To her surprise, It swung open with a low, resonant groan, revealing a dark, yawning passageway beyond. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. Switching on her headlamp, she stepped inside. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something metallic, almost like blood. The walls of the passageway were smooth and black, just like the door, and they seemed to stretch on forever. As she walked, Mia noticed that the symbols on the walls were glowing faintly, as if reacting to her presence. She felt a strange pull, as though the city itself was drawing her deeper into its depths. After what felt like hours, Mia emerged into a vast, cavernous space. Her headlamp barely illuminated the edges of the room, but she could see enough to know that she was standing in the heart of the ancient city. The architecture was breathtaking, towering spires, sweeping arches, and intricate carvings that seemed to defy explanation. But what really caught her attention were the lights. Flickering orbs of light floated through the air, casting an eerie glow over the city. They moved with purpose, almost as if they were alive, and they seemed to be converging on a central point. Mia followed them, her curiosity overriding her fear. As she drew closer, she realized that the lights were gathering around a massive, circular platform in the center of the city. On the platform stood a figure. The figure was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like the black stone of the city. Its eyes glowed with the same light as the orbs, and its movements were fluid, almost hypnotic. Mia froze, her breath catching in her throat. The figure turned to face her, and she felt a wave of something, fear, awe, recognition, wash over her. "Welcome," the figure said, its voice echoing through the cavern. "We have been waiting for you, the keeper of the city." Mia's heart raced as the figure stepped closer, its glowing eyes fixed on her. The air around her seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy, and the floating orbs of light swirled faster, casting shifting patterns on the walls of the ancient city. She wanted to run, to turn back and flee into the safety of the tunnels she had come from, but her legs refused to move. It was as if the city itself held her in place. Who are you?" Mia managed to stammer, her voice trembling. The figure tilted its head, studying her with an expression that was neither hostile nor friendly, merely curious. "I am the keeper," it said, its voice resonating with a deep, melodic tone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I am the guardian of this place, the one who ensures that the city remains hidden from the world above." Mia's mind raced. The keeper's words confirmed her suspicions. This city had been deliberately concealed, its existence erased from history. But why? And what was it doing here, buried beneath Manhattan? "What is this place?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "Why was it sealed off?" The keeper gestured to the towering spires and intricate carvings around them. "This city is older than your world," it said. "It was built by a civilization that existed long before your kind walked the earth. They were masters of energy, of time, of the very fabric of reality. But their power was also their downfall." Mia's eyes widened. "What happened to them?" The keeper's expression darkened. "They sought to transcend the limitations of their physical forms, to become beings of pure energy. But their experiments went awry, and the city was consumed by a cataclysm of their own making. Those who survived sealed the city away, hoping to contain the remnants of their power. I was created to ensure that it would never be unleashed again." Mia's head spun as she tried to process what she was hearing. An ancient civilization, a catastrophic experiment, a city buried beneath New York. It sounded like something out of a science fiction novel. And yet, here she was, standing in the middle of it all. "But why now?" she asked. "Why did you let me in?" The keeper's glowing eyes seemed to soften. "You were chosen," it said simply. "The city sensed your curiosity, your desire to uncover the truth. It called to you, just as it called to those who discovered it a century ago. But unlike them, you have the potential to understand what lies within these walls." Mia frowned. "What do you mean, the potential?" The keeper extended a hand, and one of the floating orbs drifted toward Mia, hovering just inches from her face. She felt a strange warmth emanating from it, a sensation that spread through her body like a gentle wave. Suddenly, images flashed before her eyes. Visions of the ancient civilization, their towering cities, their experiments with energy and matter. She saw the cataclysm that had destroyed them, the desperate efforts to seal the city away, and the creation of the Keeper itself. When the visions faded, Mia staggered back, her breath coming in short gasps. What was that? A glimpse of the truth, the Keeper said. But there is much more to learn. The city holds secrets that could change the course of your world, for better or for worse. It is up to you to decide what to do with them. Mia's mind was a whirlwind of questions. What secrets was the Keeper talking about? And why had it chosen her, of all people, to uncover them? She felt a mix of excitement and dread, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. The Keeper gestured toward a narrow passageway that led deeper into the city. "Follow the path," it said. "The answers you seek lie at the heart of the city. But be warned, the journey will not be easy. The city tests all who enter, and not everyone emerges unscathed." Mia hesitated, her eyes darting between the Keeper and the passageway. She had come this far, driven by her insatiable curiosity and her desire to uncover the truth. But now, faced with the reality of what lay ahead, she couldn't help but feel a pang of doubt. "What happens if I fail?" she asked. The Keeper's expression was unreadable. "Then the city will claim you, as it has claimed others before." Mia swallowed hard, her throat dry. She knew there was no turning back now. Taking a deep breath, she adjusted her backpack and stepped toward the passageway. The Keeper watched in silence as she disappeared into the darkness, the floating orbs of light trailing behind her like silent sentinels. As she walked, the air grew colder, and the walls of the passageway seemed to close in around her. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, their light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She could feel the city's presence all around her, ancient and alive, watching her every move. After what felt like an eternity, Mia emerged into another chamber. This one was smaller than the first, but no less awe-inspiring. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a single object. A crystal, about the size of a fist, glowing with an inner light that shifted and danced like a living flame. Mia approached the pedestal, her heart pounding. She could feel the crystal's energy even from a distance, a powerful, almost magnetic force that seemed to pull her closer. As she reached out to touch it, a voice echoed in her mind, a voice that was not her own. "Take it," the voice said, "but know that once you do, there is no turning back." Mia hesitated, her hand hovering just above the crystal. She knew that this was the moment of truth, the point of no return. Whatever secrets the city held, they were contained within this crystal. But what would happen if she took it? What would she unleash? Before she could make a decision, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. The walls of the chamber shook, and the symbols on the walls flared brightly, their light blinding. Mia stumbled back, her heart racing as the crystal's glow intensified, filling the room with a blinding radiance. And then, everything went black, the crystal's awakening. When Mia opened her eyes, she was no longer in the chamber. The darkness had given way to a surreal, dreamlike landscape, a vast expanse of swirling colors and shifting shapes that defied logic. The ground beneath her feet was translucent, like glass, and beneath it she could see endless layers of light and shadow, as if she were standing on the surface of a star. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice echoing in the emptiness. "You are within the crystal," a voice replied. It was the same voice she had heard before, but now it was clearer, more distinct. Mia turned and saw a figure standing a few feet away. It was humanoid, but its form was fluid, constantly shifting between shapes. A man, a woman, a creature with wings, a being made of light. "Who are you?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "I am the essence of the crystal," the figure said. "I am the accumulated knowledge, the memories, and the power of the civilization that created this city. And now, I am part of you. Mia's eyes widened. Part of me? What do you mean? The figure stepped closer, its form solidifying into that of a woman with long, flowing hair and eyes that glowed like the crystal itself. When you touched the crystal, you formed a bond with it, she explained. You are now its vessel, its keeper. The knowledge of the ancients flows through you, and with it, their power. Mia shook her head, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. Perhaps not, the figure said. But the crystal chose you. It sensed your curiosity, your courage, your desire to uncover the truth. And now you have the opportunity to use this power for good, to protect the world from the mistakes of the past. Mia's mind raced. The power of an ancient civilization, the knowledge of a lost world. It was too much to comprehend. But one thing was clear. She couldn't ignore this. She had to understand what she was dealing with. What kind of power are we talking about? She asked. The figure smiled, a sad, knowing smile. The power to manipulate energy, to bend the laws of physics, to shape reality itself. But it is not without cost. The ancients sought to transcend their physical forms, to become beings of pure energy. But in doing so, they unleashed forces they could not control. The cataclysm that destroyed them was the result of their hubris. Mia felt a chill run down her spine. And you think I can handle this power? I do not think, the figure said. I know, the crystal would not have chosen you otherwise. But the choice is yours. You can embrace this power, learn to control it, and use it to protect the world. Or you can reject it, and the crystal will find another vessel. But know this, if you reject it, the knowledge of the ancients will be lost forever, and the world will remain vulnerable to those who would seek to misuse it. Mia closed her eyes, trying to quiet the storm of thoughts in her mind. She had always been drawn to the unknown, to the secrets hidden beneath the surface. But this was more than she had ever bargained for. This was a responsibility she wasn't sure she was ready to bear. What if I make a mistake? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Then you will learn from it, the figure said. But you will not be alone. I will guide you as will the keeper. Together, we will ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. Mia took a deep breath, her decision crystallizing in her mind. She couldn't turn away from this. She had to see it through. I'll do it, she said. I'll take the power, but I need your help. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. The figure nodded, a look of approval in her glowing eyes. Then let us begin. The landscape around them shifted again, the swirling colors and shapes coalescing into a series of images, scenes from the ancient civilization's history. Mia watched as the figures of the past came to life before her eyes, their triumphs and failures playing out like a movie. She saw their great cities, their experiments with energy, their attempts to transcend their physical forms. And she saw the cataclysm that destroyed them, a wave of energy so powerful it consumed everything in its path. As the images faded, Mia felt a surge of understanding. She knew now what she had to do. She had to protect the world from this power, to ensure that it was never misused again. Thank you, she said to the figure. I understand now. The figure smiled. Then our time here is done. But remember, Mia, the journey is just beginning. The city will test you, as it has tested all who came before. But I believe in you, and so does the crystal. With that, the figure dissolved into light, and Mia felt herself being pulled back into the physical world. She opened her eyes to find herself back in the chamber, the crystal still glowing on the pedestal. But something was different. She could feel its power coursing through her, a warm, pulsating energy that filled her with strength and clarity. As she reached out to take the crystal, she heard the keeper's voice in her mind. You have made your choice, it said. Now you must face the consequences. Mia nodded, gripping the crystal tightly. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was ready. She had the knowledge of the ancients, the power of the crystal, and the guidance of the keeper. Together, they would protect the world from the dangers that lay beneath. But as she turned to leave the chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The city was alive, and it was not yet done with her. The city's test. Mia stepped out of the chamber, the crystal clutched tightly in her hand. Its warmth was a constant reminder of the power she now carried, but also of the responsibility that came with it. The passageway ahead was dimly lit by the glowing symbols on the walls, their light flickering like distant stars. She could feel the city's presence all around her, ancient and watchful, as if it were testing her resolve. The keeper's voice echoed in her mind. "The city will test you," it had said. Mia didn't know what that meant, but she was determined to face whatever lay ahead. She had come too far to turn back now. As she walked, the air grew colder, and the walls of the passageway seemed to close in around her. The symbols on the walls pulsed brighter, their light casting strange shadows that danced and twisted in the corners of her vision. She could hear faint whispers, voices that seemed to come from all directions, speaking in a language she didn't understand. But beneath the whispers, there was something else, a low, rhythmic hum that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. Mia pressed on, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The passageway began to narrow, the walls closing in until she was forced to walk single file. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. She felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling that she was being watched, judged. Finally, the passageway opened into a large, circular room. The walls were covered in more of the glowing symbols, but these were different. They seemed to shift and change as she looked at them, forming patterns that made her head spin. In the center of the room was a pedestal, much like the one that had held the crystal, but this one was empty. As Mia approached the pedestal, the whispers grew louder, more urgent. She could feel the city's presence pressing down on her, a weight that made it hard to think. And then, without warning, the room began to change. The walls seemed to dissolve, the symbols melting away to reveal a vast, open space. Mia found herself standing on a platform high above a city, but it wasn't the ancient city she had been exploring. This city was alive, bustling with activity. Towering spires reached toward the sky, their surfaces shimmering with light. Strange vehicles zipped through the air, and the streets below were filled with people. People who looked human, but not quite. Their movements were too fluid, too precise, and their eyes glowed with the same light as the symbols on the walls. Mia realized with a start that she was seeing the ancient civilization as it had been before the cataclysm. This was their world, their city brought to life before her eyes. "This is a test," she whispered to herself. "But what am I supposed to do?" As if in response, the scene before her shifted. The bustling city was replaced by a scene of chaos. The sky darkened, and the spires began to crumble. The people in the streets screamed as a wave of energy swept through the city, consuming everything in its path. Mia watched in horror as the civilization she had just seen was destroyed, reduced to ash and rubble. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the scene changed again. Mia was back in the circular room, the glowing symbols on the walls pulsing with a frantic energy. The whispers had grown into a deafening roar, and she could feel the city's presence pressing down on her, demanding something. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice barely audible over the noise. The room fell silent, the whispers fading away. The symbols on the walls stopped pulsing, their light dimming to a soft glow. And then, a single voice spoke, clear and commanding. "You must choose." Mia looked around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Choose what?" she asked. "The fate of the city," the voice replied. "You have seen its past, its destruction. Now you must decide its future. Will you preserve it, protect it from those who would misuse its power? Or will you destroy it, ensuring that its secrets are lost forever?" Mia's mind raced. This was the test the keeper had warned her about. The city was forcing her to make a choice that would determine not only its fate, but the fate of the world above. She thought about what she had seen, the power of the ancient civilization, the cataclysm that had destroyed them. She thought about the crystal in her hand, the knowledge and power it contained. And she thought about the responsibility that had been thrust upon her. "I choose to protect it," she said finally, her voice steady. "I'll ensure that its power is never misused again." The room seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the tension in the air dissipating. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, their light filling the room with a warm, golden radiance. And then, the voice spoke again. "You have chosen wisely, but the journey is not over. The city will continue to test you, to challenge you. And there are others who seek its power, who will stop at nothing to claim it for themselves." Mia nodded, her resolve hardening. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was ready. She had the knowledge of the ancients, the power of the crystal, and the guidance of the keeper. Together, they would protect the city and the world above from those who would seek to misuse its power. As she turned to leave the room, she felt a surge of energy, a sense of purpose that filled her with strength. The city was alive and it had chosen her. She would not let it down. But as she stepped back into the passageway, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The city was not yet done with her, and neither were those who sought its power. Shadows in the depths. Mia emerged from the circular room, the crystal still glowing faintly in her hand. The passageway ahead was darker now, the symbols on the walls dimmer, as if the city itself was conserving its energy. She could feel the weight of the crystal's power coursing through her, a constant reminder of the responsibility she now carried. But there was something else too, a sense of unease, a feeling that she was not alone. The whispers had returned, faint and distant, but unmistakable. They seemed to come from all directions, weaving through the air like threads of sound. Mia tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the path ahead. She needed to find a way out of the city, to bring the crystal to the surface and figure out her next steps. But the deeper she went, the more the city seemed to resist her progress. The passageway twisted and turned, branching off into smaller tunnels that led to who knew where. Mia stuck to the main path, guided by the faint glow of the symbols on the walls. But as she walked, she began to notice something strange. The shadows around her seemed to move on their own, shifting and twisting in ways that defied logic. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, a trick of the dim light. But then she saw it. A figure, dark and indistinct, darting across the edge of her vision. Mia froze, her heart pounding. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice echoing in the silence. There was no response, but the shadows seemed to grow thicker, more oppressive. She could feel the city's presence pressing down on her, a weight that made it hard to breathe. And then, from the darkness, a voice spoke, a voice that was cold and mocking, filled with malice. "You shouldn't have come here." Mia spun around, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, echoing in her mind as much as in her ears. "Who are you?" she demanded, gripping the crystal tightly. The voice laughed, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "I am what remains," it said, "the remnants of those who sought to claim the city's power for themselves. And now I will take it from you." Before Mia could react, the shadows surged forward, coalescing into a solid form. The figure was humanoid, but its features were blurred, as if it were made of smoke and darkness. Its eyes glowed with a cold, malevolent light, and its movements were unnaturally fast. Mia stumbled back, her mind racing. She had no idea how to fight this thing, no idea if it could even be fought. But she couldn't just stand there and let it take the crystal. Summoning all her courage, she held the crystal out in front of her, its light flaring brightly. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. The figure hesitated, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You think you can control the crystal's power?" it sneered. "You are nothing but a child, playing with forces you cannot possibly understand." Mia felt a surge of anger, cutting through her fear. "Maybe I don't understand it yet," she said, "but I'm willing to learn, and I won't let someone like you misuse it." The figure laughed again, but this time, there was a hint of uncertainty in its voice. "We shall see," it said, before dissolving back into the shadows. Mia stood there for a moment, her heart still racing. She knew the figure wasn't gone. It was just waiting, biding its time. And she knew that there would be more like it, others who sought the city's power for their own ends. Taking a deep breath, she pressed on, her grip on the crystal tightening. The passageway began to slope upward, the air growing cooler and fresher. She could feel the city's presence receding, its weight lifting as she moved closer to the surface. But the whispers were still there, faint and insistent, urging her to turn back. Finally, after what felt like hours, Mia saw a faint light ahead. A real light, not the glow of the symbols on the walls. She quickened her pace, her heart lifting as she realized she was nearing the exit. But just as she reached the source of the light, she heard the voice again, cold and mocking. "This is not over," it said. "The city will call you back. And when it does, you will not be able to resist." Mia ignored the voice, stepping out into the cool night air. She was back in the abandoned maintenance tunnel, the rusted gate she had cut through earlier still hanging open. The city was behind her now, but she knew it wasn't done with her. The crystal in her hand was proof of that. As she made her way back to the surface, Mia's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She had uncovered the secrets of the underground city, but she had also unleashed something far more dangerous. The figure in the shadows, the whispers, the power of the crystal, it was all connected, and she was at the center of it. But she wasn't alone. She had the keeper, the crystal, and the knowledge of the ancients. And she had her own determination, her own strength. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it. As she stepped out onto the streets of New York, the city above seemed both familiar and alien. The lights, the noise, the people. It was all so different from the ancient city beneath her feet. But Mia knew that the two were connected, bound together by the power she now carried. She looked down at the crystal, its light dimming as if it were resting. "We'll figure this out," she whispered. "Together." And with that, she disappeared into the night, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The surface world's reaction. Mia emerged from the underground tunnels into the cold, crisp air of a New York City night. The streets were quieter now, the usual hustle and bustle subdued by the late hour. She clutched the crystal tightly, its faint glow hidden beneath her jacket. Her mind raced with thoughts of what she had just experienced. The ancient city, the keeper, the shadowy figure, and the immense power she now carried. But as she walked, a new realization dawned on her. The surface world had no idea what lay beneath its feet. She needed to find a safe place to think, to process everything. Her apartment was out of the question. It was too exposed, too vulnerable. Instead, she made her way to an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place she had used before as a temporary hideout during her urban explorations. The building was dilapidated, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in graffiti, but it was secure and, more importantly, off the grid. Once inside, Mia set the crystal down on a makeshift table, its glow illuminating the dim space. She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her contacts. She needed help, someone she could trust. Her eyes landed on a name, Jake Carter. Jake was a fellow urban explorer and a close friend. He was also a tech whiz who had helped her out of more than a few tight spots. If anyone could help her make sense of this, it was him. She dialed his number, her fingers trembling slightly. After a few rings, he picked up. "Mia, do you have any idea what time it is?" Jake's voice was groggy, but there was a hint of concern. "Jake, I need your help," Mia said, her voice urgent. It's hard to explain. Can you meet me at the old warehouse on 5th and Elm?" There was a pause on the other end. "Mia, are you in trouble?" "Yes. No, I don't know. Just, please, Jake. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Another pause, then a sigh. "All right, I'm on my way, but this better be good." Mia hung up and leaned against the table, her eyes fixed on the crystal. She didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, she heard the sound of a car pulling up outside, followed by the creak of the warehouse door. Jake stepped inside, his tall frame silhouetted against the dim light from the street. He was dressed in a hoodie and jeans, his dark hair messy from sleep. "Mia, what the hell is going on?" he asked, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. His gaze landed on the crystal and he froze. "What is that?" Mia took a deep breath. "Jake, I need you to promise me something. What I'm about to tell you, you can't tell anyone." "Not yet." Jake hesitated, then nodded. "All right, I promise." Mia spent the next hour explaining everything: the underground city, the keeper, the shadowy figure, the crystal, and the power it contained. Jake listened in silence, his expression shifting from skepticism to disbelief to outright shock. "You're telling me there's an ancient city buried beneath Manhattan, and you're now the guardian of some kind of superpowered crystal?" Jake said when she finished, his voice incredulous. "I know how it sounds," Mia said, her voice steady, "but it's true, and I need your help to figure out what to do next." Jake ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "All right, let's say I believe you. What exactly do you need me to do?" "I need to understand the crystal's power," Mia said, "and I need to find out if there are others out there who know about the city. That shadowy figure, it wasn't human, but it knew about the crystal. If there are more like it, they could be a threat." Jake nodded slowly. "All right, first things first, we need to analyze the crystal. I've got some equipment back at my place that might help. But we need to be careful. If what you're saying is true, this thing is dangerous." Mia agreed, and together they packed up the crystal and headed to Jake's apartment. It was a small, cluttered space filled with computers, gadgets, and half-finished projects. Jake cleared off a table and set up a series of devices: spectrometers, scanners, and other tools Mia didn't recognize. As Jake worked, Mia kept an eye on the crystal. It seemed to pulse faintly, as if it were alive. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching her, waiting for something. After several hours, Jake leaned back in his chair, his face pale. "Mia, this thing is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's emitting some kind of energy, but it's not like any energy source I know. It's almost like it's alive." Mia nodded. "I know. The Keeper said it contains the knowledge and power of the ancient civilization. But it's also a responsibility. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic," Jake finished. He looked at her, his expression serious. "Mia, we need to tell someone about this. The government, scientists, someone who can help." Mia shook her head. "No, not yet. We don't know who we can trust. That shadowy figure, it knew about the city. What if there are others like it already on the surface? What if they're watching us right now?" Jake frowned, but before he could respond, the lights in the apartment flickered. The crystal's glow intensified, and Mia felt a surge of energy in the air. She turned to Jake, her eyes wide. "Something's wrong." The words had barely left her mouth when the window shattered. A dark figure leaped into the room, its form shifting and twisting like smoke. The apartment felt too exposed, too vulnerable. They needed a safer place to regroup and plan their next steps. Mia suggested they head to an old, abandoned subway station she had discovered during one of her explorations, a place that was not only hidden but also connected to the underground city. Jake agreed, though he was clearly uneasy about venturing back into the depths. As they made their way to the station, the city above seemed to grow quieter, as if holding its breath. The streets were nearly empty, the usual hum of traffic and chatter replaced by an eerie silence. Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the shadowy figure, or something worse, was lurking just out of sight. When they reached the station, Mia led Jake through a series of hidden passages and locked gates, finally emerging into a cavernous space that had once been a bustling hub of activity. Now it was a ghostly shell, its platforms empty and its tracks rusted and overgrown. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, but there was something else too, a faint, almost imperceptible hum, like the city itself was alive. Mia set the crystal down on an old ticket counter, its glow casting long shadows across the walls. Jake set up his equipment, his hands moving quickly as he connected wires and adjusted settings. He was clearly nervous, but his focus was unwavering. "All right," he said, his voice low. "Let's see what we're dealing with." As Jake worked, Mia kept watch, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The station was vast, its dark corners hiding who knew what. She couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. After what felt like hours, Jake leaned back, his face pale. Mia, this thing is more than just a power source. It's like a key to something much bigger. Mia frowned. What do you mean? Jake gestured to the readings on his screen. The crystal is emitting a signal, a kind of energy signature. And it's not just random. It's like it's communicating with something. Or someone. Mia's heart skipped a beat. The city. Jake nodded. Maybe. Or maybe something else. Something outside. Mia felt a chill run down her spine. Outside? What do you mean, outside? Jake hesitated, his expression grim. I mean outside our world. The energy signature. It's not like anything I've ever seen. It's almost alien. Mia stared at him, her mind racing. The ancient civilization, the cataclysm, the shadowy figure, it was all connected. But if the crystal was a key to something beyond their world, then the stakes were even higher than she had realized. Before she could respond, the crystal's glow intensified, its light pulsing in time with the hum in the air. Mia felt a surge of energy, a wave of warmth that spread through her body. And then, she heard it. A voice, faint but unmistakable. Mia, you must come back. It was the keeper's voice, echoing in her mind. Mia turned to Jake, her eyes wide. Did you hear that? Jake shook his head, his expression confused. Hear what? Mia hesitated, then reached out and touched the crystal. The moment her fingers made contact, the world around her seemed to dissolve. She was back in the underground city, standing in the vast, cavernous space she had seen before. The keeper was there, its glowing eyes fixed on her. You must return, it said. The city is awakening, and it needs you. Mia shook her head, trying to clear the fog in her mind. What do you mean, it's awakening? What's happening? The keeper's expression was grave. The crystal is a key, as your friend has surmised, but it is also a beacon, and it has drawn the attention of those who would seek to claim its power. Mia felt a surge of panic. The shadowy figure? The keeper nodded. It is but one of many. They are the remnants of the ancient civilization, those who were corrupted by their own power. They have been waiting, biding their time, and now they are coming. Mia's mind raced. What do I do? How do I stop them? The keeper's eyes glowed brighter. You must embrace the crystal's power. You must become its true guardian. Only then can you protect the city and the world above. Mia felt a wave of doubt. I don't know if I can do this. I'm not strong enough. The keeper's voice softened. You are stronger than you know, Mia. The crystal chose you for a reason, but the choice is yours. You must decide. Before Mia could respond, the vision faded, and she was back in the subway station. Jake was staring at her, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. Mia, are you okay? You just zoned out for a minute. Mia took a deep breath, her mind still reeling. Jake, we're running out of time. The city, it's awakening, and there are others coming. We need to get back underground. Jake's eyes widened. Back underground? Are you serious? Mia nodded, her resolve hardening. I don't have a choice. The crystal, it's a key. And if it falls into the wrong hands, it could mean the end of everything. Jake hesitated, then nodded. All right, but we're doing this together. Mia smiled, grateful for his support. Together, as they gathered their things and prepared to descend back into the depths, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a storm that had been brewing for centuries. The city was alive and it was calling to her, but she knew that the real battle was just beginning. The awakening. Mia and Jake descended deeper into the underground, following the faint glow of the crystal as it guided them through the labyrinthine tunnels. The air grew colder, the walls slick with moisture, and the hum of the city's energy became more pronounced. Mia could feel the crystal's power resonating within her, a steady pulse that seemed to synchronize with her heartbeat. It was as if the city itself was alive, breathing, waiting. As they approached the entrance to the ancient city, Mia noticed something strange. The symbols on the walls, which had been faint and dormant before, were now glowing brightly, their light shifting and swirling like liquid. The whispers she had heard earlier were louder now, more insistent, but they were no longer disjointed. They formed a coherent message, one that echoed in her mind. The time has come. Mia stopped in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. Jake glanced at her, his face pale in the eerie light. "What is it? What's wrong? Do you hear that?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake shook his head. "Hear what? I don't hear anything." Mia realized that the whispers were meant for her alone. The city was speaking to her, guiding her. She took a deep breath and pressed on, Jake close behind. When they reached the entrance to the ancient city, they found it had changed. The massive black stone door was now wide open, its surface covered in glowing symbols that pulsed with a rhythmic light. Beyond the door, the city was alive in a way it hadn't been before. The floating orbs of light were brighter, their movements more deliberate, and the air was filled with a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. Mia stepped inside, the crystal in her hand glowing brighter as if in response to the city's energy. Jake followed, his eyes wide with awe and fear. "This place, it's incredible," he whispered. "But it feels wrong." Mia nodded. "It's waking up, and it's not just the city. Something else is coming." As they moved deeper into the city, the keeper appeared before them, its form more solid and vivid than before. Its glowing eyes locked onto Mia, and its voice echoed in her mind. "You have returned. The city is awakening, and the time of reckoning is near." Mia stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "What do I need to do?" The keeper gestured toward the center of the city, where the massive circular platform stood. "The heart of the city lies there. You must go to it and complete the bond. Only then can you control the city's power and protect it from those who would misuse it." Mia glanced at Jake, who nodded reluctantly. "Let's get this over with," he said, though his voice betrayed his unease. As they approached the platform, the air grew thicker, the hum louder. The symbols on the walls and floor glowed brighter, their light converging on the platform. Mia could feel the crystal's energy surging, as if it were eager to fulfill its purpose. When they reached the platform, Mia hesitated. The keeper's words echoed in her mind. "You must complete the bond." She knew what that meant. She would have to fully embrace the crystal's power, to become one with it. But she also knew that doing so would change her forever. Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mia, you don't have to do this alone. Whatever happens, I'm here with you." Mia smiled, grateful for his support. "Thank you, Jake. But this is something I have to do." She stepped onto the platform, the crystal held out in front of her. The moment her feet touched the surface, the symbols on the platform flared to life, their light enveloping her in a blinding radiance. She felt a surge of energy, a wave of warmth and power that filled her completely. The crystal's light merged with her own, and she felt herself being lifted off the ground, suspended in the air. Images flashed before her eyes, visions of the ancient civilization, their triumphs and failures, their rise and fall. She saw the cataclysm that had destroyed them, the desperate efforts to seal the city away, and the creation of the Keeper. And then, she saw something else. A vast, dark void, filled with shifting shadows and glowing eyes. It was the source of the shadowy figures, the remnants of the corrupted ancients. They were coming, drawn by the crystal's awakening. Mia's mind was flooded with knowledge, with power. She understood now what she had to do. The city was not just a relic of the past. It was a living entity, a being of immense power and intelligence. And it had chosen her to be its guardian. As the light faded, Mia felt herself being lowered back onto the platform. The crystal was gone, its power now a part of her. She could feel it coursing through her veins, a steady, pulsing energy that filled her with strength and clarity. Jake stared at her, his eyes wide with awe. "Mia, your eyes, they're glowing." Mia looked down at her hands, which were faintly glowing with the same light as the crystal. She felt different, stronger, more aware, but also burdened by the weight of her new responsibility. The keeper's voice echoed in her mind. The bond is complete. You are now the guardian of the city. But the battle is not over. The corrupted ones are coming, and they will stop at nothing to claim the city's power. Mia nodded, her resolve hardening. Then we'll be ready. As she spoke, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The hum in the air grew louder, more urgent, and the symbols on the walls flared brightly. Mia could feel the city's energy surging, preparing for the coming storm. Jake looked at her, his expression grim. What do we do now? Mia turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with determination. We fight. The battle for the city. The tremors grew stronger, shaking the ancient city to its core. The air was thick with energy, the hum now a deafening roar that seemed to come from all directions. Mia could feel the city's power coursing through her, a steady, pulsing force that filled her with strength and clarity. But she could also feel something else, a dark, malevolent presence, drawing closer with every passing second. The corrupted ones were coming. Mia turned to Jake, her glowing eyes filled with determination. We need to prepare. The city's defenses are activating, but we have to hold them off until it's ready. Jake nodded, though his face was pale. What do you need me to do? Mia gestured toward a control panel embedded in the wall, its surface covered in glowing symbols. The city's technology is ancient, but it's still functional. I can guide you on how to activate its defenses. We need to buy as much time as possible. Jake hesitated, then stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly as he examined the panel. All right, tell me what to do. As Mia began to explain, the ground shook again, more violently this time. The symbols on the walls flared brightly, and the floating orbs of light began to move faster, their movements frantic. Mia could feel the city's energy surging, preparing for the coming battle. The corrupted ones are here, the keeper's voice echoed in her mind. You must hold them off. Mia turned to Jake. Stay here and keep the defenses active. I'll handle the rest. Jake nodded, his expression grim. Be careful, Mia. Mia gave him a reassuring smile, then turned and ran toward the entrance of the city. As she moved, she could feel the crystal's power within her, a steady, pulsing force that filled her with strength and clarity. She knew what she had to do. When she reached the entrance, she found it already under attack. The shadowy figures were there, their forms shifting and twisting like smoke. Their glowing eyes locked onto her, and they surged forward with terrifying speed. Mia raised her hands, and the crystal's power surged through her. A wave of energy erupted from her palms, slamming into the shadowy figures and forcing them back. They hissed and snarled, their forms wavering, but they didn't retreat. Instead, they regrouped and charged again. Mia fought with everything she had, her movements fueled by the crystal's power. She could feel the city's energy supporting her, its defenses activating as Jake worked to keep them online. But the shadowy figures were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. As the battle raged on, Mia began to feel the strain. The crystal's power was immense, but it was also draining. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever. Mia! Jake's voice echoed through the city, filled with urgency. The defenses are almost ready, but I need more time. Mia gritted her teeth, her glowing eyes narrowing. Hold on, Jake. I'll buy you as much time as I can. She surged forward, her movements a blur as she unleashed the crystal's power in a series of devastating attacks. The shadowy figures were forced back, their forms flickering and dissolving under the onslaught. But just as Mia thought she was gaining the upper hand, a new threat emerged. From the shadows stepped a figure unlike the others. It was taller, more solid, its form radiating a dark, malevolent energy. Its glowing eyes locked onto Mia, and it spoke, its voice cold and mocking. You cannot win, it said. The city's power belongs to us. Mia stared at the figure, her heart pounding. This was the leader of the corrupted ones, the source of their power. She knew that if she could defeat it, the others would fall. Summoning all her strength, Mia charged forward, the crystal's power surging through her. The figure met her attack head-on, its dark energy clashing with her light. The battle was fierce, each strike shaking the city to its core. But Mia was determined. She could feel the city's energy supporting her, its defenses activating as Jake worked to keep them online. And then, finally, she saw her opening. With a final, desperate surge of power, Mia unleashed a wave of energy that slammed into the figure, forcing it back. It screamed, its form flickering and dissolving under the onslaught. And then, with a final, deafening roar, it was gone. The shadowy figures hesitated, their forms wavering as their leader fell. And then, as one, they dissolved into the shadows, retreating into the darkness. Mia collapsed to her knees, her breath coming in short gasps. The crystal's power was still within her, but she could feel it fading, the strain of the battle taking its toll. "Mia!" Jake's voice echoed through the city, filled with relief. "The defenses are online. The city is safe." Mia smiled weakly, her glowing eyes dimming. "We did it, Jake. We protected the city." But as she spoke, she felt a strange sensation, a pull deep within her. The city's energy was calling to her, drawing her back to its heart. "Mia!" Jake's voice was filled with concern. "What's wrong?" Mia looked up at him, her expression grim. "The city. It's not done with me yet." Before Jake could respond, the ground beneath them began to shake again. The symbols on the walls flared brightly, and the floating orbs of light began to converge on the platform at the city's center. Mia felt herself being pulled toward the platform, the crystal's power surging within her. She knew what was happening. The city was completing the bond, fully integrating her as its guardian. "Jake," she said, her voice filled with urgency. "I have to go. The city needs me." Jake hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "I'll be here, Mia. Whatever happens, I'll be here." Mia smiled, grateful for his support. Then, with a final surge of energy, she was lifted off the ground and carried toward the platform. The city's light enveloped her, and she felt herself being drawn into its heart. As the light faded, Mia found herself standing in a vast, empty space, filled with a soft, golden light. The keeper was there, its glowing eyes fixed on her. "You have done well, Mia," it said. "The city is safe, and the corrupted ones have been driven back. But your journey is not over. The city's power is now a part of you, and you must learn to control it." Mia nodded, her resolve hardening. "I'll do whatever it takes." The keeper's expression softened. "I know you will, and I will be here to guide you." As the keeper's words faded, Mia felt herself being pulled back into the physical world. She opened her eyes to find herself standing on the platform, the city's energy pulsing around her. Jake was there, his expression filled with relief. "Mia, are you okay?" Mia smiled, her glowing eyes filled with determination. "I'm fine, Jake, but this is just the beginning. The city's power is a part of me now, and I have to learn how to control it." Jake nodded, his expression grim. "Then we'll do it together." As they stood there, the city's energy pulsing around them, Mia knew that their journey was far from over. The battle for the city had been won, but the war was just beginning, and she was ready to face whatever came next. The Guardian's legacy. The aftermath of the battle left the ancient city in a state of eerie calm. The floating orbs of light drifted lazily through the air, their movements serene, and the hum of the city's energy had settled into a low, soothing rhythm. Mia stood at the heart of the city, the crystal's power now fully integrated into her being. She could feel it coursing through her veins, a steady, pulsing force that connected her to the city and its ancient secrets. Jake stood beside her, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "Mia, how do you feel?" Mia took a deep breath, her glowing eyes softening as she turned to him. "Different, stronger, but also heavier. The city's power is incredible, but it's a lot to carry." Jake nodded, his gaze shifting to the glowing symbols on the walls. "What happens now? The corrupted ones are gone. But is this over?" Mia shook her head. "No, the city is safe for now, but the power it holds is too great to ignore. There will always be others who seek to claim it. And as long as I'm its guardian, I have to protect it. Jake frowned. You can't do this alone, Mia. You're not just some ancient relic. You're a person. You need help. Mia smiled, touched by his concern. I know, and I'm grateful you're here, Jake, but this is my responsibility. The city chose me, and I have to see this through. Before Jake could respond, the keeper appeared before them, its form more vivid and solid than ever, its glowing eyes fixed on Mia, and its voice echoed in her mind. The city is at peace, but its future is uncertain. You have proven yourself as its guardian, but the journey ahead will not be easy. The world above is unaware of what lies beneath, and it must remain so. The city's power is too great to be revealed. Mia nodded, her expression serious. I understand. But how do I protect the city without isolating it completely? The world above could benefit from its knowledge, its power. The keeper's gaze softened. The city's knowledge is vast, but it is also dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could bring about destruction. You must tread carefully, Mia. Share its secrets only with those you trust, and only when the time is right. Mia glanced at Jake, who gave her a reassuring nod. I'll help you, Mia. Whatever you need. Mia felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Jake. I couldn't do this without you. The keeper's voice echoed again. The bond between you and the city is complete, but it is not unbreakable. You must learn to control its power, to understand its secrets, and you must remain vigilant. The corrupted ones may return, and there are others who will seek to claim the city's power. Mia's resolve hardened. I'll be ready. Whatever comes, I'll protect the city. The keeper nodded, its form beginning to fade. Then our time here is done. But remember, Mia, you are not alone. The city is with you, and so am I. As the keeper disappeared, Mia felt a sense of calm settle over her. The city's energy pulsed gently, a reminder of the bond she now shared with it. She turned to Jake, her glowing eyes filled with determination. Let's get to work. Over the following weeks, Mia and Jake worked tirelessly to uncover the city's secrets. With Jake's technical expertise and Mia's newfound connection to the crystal, they were able to activate more of the city's defenses and unlock its vast repository of knowledge. They discovered ancient texts, advanced technology, and even glimpses of the civilization's history, its rise, its fall, and the cataclysm that had sealed it away. But they also discovered something else, a way to communicate with the city, to tap into its power without fully unleashing it. Mia learned to control the crystal's energy, to use it to protect the city and, when necessary, to defend herself. She also began to understand the city's true purpose, not just as a relic of the past, but as a beacon of hope for the future. One evening, as they sat in the heart of the city, Mia turned to Jake. I've been thinking, maybe we don't have to keep the city hidden forever. Maybe one day we can share its knowledge with the world. Carefully, of course, but imagine what we could learn, what we could achieve. Jake smiled. I think you're right, but for now, let's focus on keeping it safe. We've got a long road ahead. Mia nodded, her gaze shifting to the glowing symbols on the walls. We do, but I'm ready. The city chose me for a reason, and I'm not going to let it down. As the city's energy pulsed gently around them, Mia felt a sense of peace. The battle for the city had been won, but the journey was far from over. She was its guardian now, and she would protect it with everything she had. And with Jake by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next.